Hey everybody, it is Cal Nitro for Nitro Maniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited, a very beardy and shaggy looking Cal Nitro coming at you here as the quarantine is still in full effect, but it seems to be lessening by the day. Anyways, All Elite Wrestling, AEW puts out its second pay-per-view offering of the year as they do these quarterly. It is the springtime tradition of Double or Nothing. What was supposed to be at the MGM Grand Garden Arena this year got moved due to the pandemic to Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, in front of a not so capacity crowd of maybe ballpark 25 people or so, and a worldwide pay-per-view audience, which is the more important. It was all for us at home, and the date, of course, was May 23rd, 2020, and a significant day in wrestling history in the past and that stuff. It's kind of a sad week in the world of wrestling. Just want to touch on that quickly before getting into my take of the pay-per-view here. We lost both Shad, Gaspard this week, which is, of course, one half of Crime Time, a very entertaining tag team from kind of the tail end of the Ruthless Aggression era and into the PG era in WWE circles and that stuff. Their run in late 06 and into 07, hilarious. Some of the best comedic work from a tag team I've ever seen in my life on WWE TV. And Shad Gaspard and, of course, his partner JTG, just a real recognizable act. And, of course, Shad, unfortunately, passed away earlier this week. And another tragic occasion came out the night before that this pay-per-view hit. It was the death of Hana Kimura, a blue-chip ace prospect over in Stardom. Had wrestled over here. You could catch her in a couple of my reviews for Wrestle Kingdom this year, and has made Ring of Honor appearances, including one at the G1 Supercard last year in New York City. So I did get a chance to watch her wrestle once in person. Again, she passed away at 22 years old, as it's been deemed a suicide, the cause of death. And it's just got to reiterate this. You probably heard it more than 1,000 times. It was repeated on the pay-per-view tonight by Excalibur, that social media is indeed a wonderful tool if used correctly. And if you're going to basically post and spew garbage and that stuff on social media, get off of it. I'm really in favor of a lot of the kind of Twitter safety guidelines that they're looking at maybe instituting over the next 5 years or so, which includes verification on accounts, much like YouTube has, where all accounts are hooked up to a telephone number or cell phone number, and at least some sort of hard private way, but a hard way to get hooked up to at least a person behind these accounts and that stuff. So if there are burner accounts and flame accounts and whatever else out there, it can be quickly, I don't want to say quelled, but at least you know the person, or you have some sort of, or Twitter knows the person that's spewing that hate, and they can take appropriate action that way. And just be nicer to everybody on social media. That's basically it. It was unnecessary what had to happen here. I mean, she's 22, for God's sakes. Like, come on, people, get your act together. But I want to extend my deepest condolences to the families of both Shad Gaspard and Hana Kimura, that, again, we both lost this week. And the pay-per-view itself did a couple of really nice tributes to both individuals this week. Shad Gaspard, of course, being honored in the kind of the tribute portion, saying that this pay-per-view was made for our first responders and, fallen friends and comrades over the past week. And the nice little graphic at the end before going into like the trailer of what the pay-per-view was about. And what was the pay-per-view about? Well, here we go. Excalibur and Taz welcome us to the buy-in. And this was 30 minutes before the actual pay-per-view went on air. Lance Archer, the first thing we see is a promo with Tony Schiavone in what looks like to be a warehouse somewhere in Jacksonville or in Florida or Georgia or somewhere. And Lance Archer looks ready for a TNT Championship match. It's a very entertaining promo, of course, with Jake Roberts kind of talking, and Archer just smashing things with a sledgehammer, including a toilet. So, make what you will. We didn't go into the first and only match of the buy-in, Private Party versus Best Friends. This was a number one contendership match for the tag team titles that are on the line here. These are a few of my favorite spots during this match. There was an amazing DDT by Cassidy on Trent during this match. I just love the double team sequence here. And then Private Party hits Crime Time's G9, which was the tandem finish that Crime Time had used in WWE circles. A nice tribute to Shad Gaspard. There was a real nice bunch of tweets about it online after it was hit, and I have to concur. That was, kind of a moment where you kind of get taken back a little bit and realize what it's all about. So for the finish, the Best Friends hit the strong zero finisher to get the 1-2 free. The runtime on that one is, as I look at my notes here, 15 minutes, just a tad over 15 minutes. I got 15:10, but probably more of a 15-minute type affair. Very solid, very TV-worthy match, nothing overly special, but it just kind of moves the storylines along for the belts. Private Party now, number one contendership for the tag titles being held by Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. They were not on the line tonight, so they will continue to be held by Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, and this is setting up to be a pretty good matchup between the four of them. We'll look and see if that happens on an episode of Dynamite or booked later on down the line. We already talked about the beautiful opening video and the tributes to Shad Gaspard and the first responders and that stuff. And right after that awesome opening airs, we get thrown right back into Daly's place because it's time for the casino ladder match. The winner gets the casino chip that's hanging above the ring and a shot at the AEW title. Injury update: Rey Fenix, who hurt himself big time on a dive that basically no one caught him on Wednesday night. He crashed and burned big time. Is out. We're going to find out more about his condition, I think, on Wednesday on Dynamite, it sounds like. And so the bad boy, Joey Janela, was slotted in. He was not the mystery participant, though. That spot still yet to be determined, and we'll find that out during this match. This series of promos, though, going into this match was very phenomenal. I liked the kind of the Royal Rumble-esque pre-match promo, I guess, gauntlet that we got out of it. We got Janela basically being excited to be there. You got an awesome Kip Sabian, Jimmy Havoc, Penelope Ford promo, and that suit that Havoc was wearing was magnifique. Kudos to you, sir. You had an awesome Christopher Daniels promo basically saying that one of the members of SCU, either Kazarian or Scorpio Sky, is walking away with the chip. And yeah, just a very awesome series of promos. It was really good. Darby Allin's involved in this too. Had to cut another awesome promo. It was great. This is a staggered rules kind of Royal Rumble-esque match where two men start, and every 2 minutes the next participant would come down to the ring. I like these rules a little bit more than what WWE does, which is basically a ladder scramble, or what Ring of Honor does, which is a true scramble and a multi-man scramble and that stuff. This kind of staggers things out, and it kind of gives the illusion that, hey, someone out of the first two could knock out the other guy, grab a ladder, and then climb up in, and this thing could be over before the rest of the people get into the ring. It kind of leaves that kind of wide open, and leave it to AEW to maybe explore that down the road. This is the first time I've ever seen a ladder match with this kind of layout, and I was very impressed by it. So SCU starts. Frankie Kazarian drew number one. His opponent, Scorpio Sky. So it's the Demolition from Rumble 1989 angle all over again, with tag team partners facing off of spots 1 and 2. 2 minutes pass. Kip Sabian is entrant number 3. Jimmy Havoc's at ringside, though, who's not in this match, but he takes out both SCU members with a ladder, and he eats a German, though, by Kazarian for his efforts, though, and just a really brutal German into a ladder into the ringside area. Darby Allin ends up being entrant number 4, and this was an oh my god moment. Darby Allin goes to crush Kaz with off the top of the tallest ladder, maybe about 15-20 feet up, skateboard ollie stunt, that all those crazy border kids do, the skate or die kids, basically. And he crashed and burned big time. I'm surprised that actually, I'm not. If he did end up breaking his shin tonight or something, it would not have surprised me that he toughed it out, because he landed like the wrong way and his legs kind of went bleh, like that when he hit. So, yeah, yikes. With all the injury trouble lately with AEW, especially over the past week, was this necessary? Was it not? It's kind of a hot debate right now. But this spot definitely was a breath taker. Was it a positive breath taker or a negative breath taker? We'll see. Entrant number 5 right after that, Orange Cassidy, takes his time, kind of meanders over to the commentary booth, asks about the rules. Excalibur said, Tony explained the rules to you earlier in the day. And Orange was like, well, I wasn't paying attention. So, kind of just, dang. And then slowly takes off the jean jacket and meanders into the ring and sidesteps a couple of guys. And yeah, I popped. But Colt Cabana is number 6, and Orange ends up getting dumped out of the ring by Colt Cabana. Colt sets up the ladder and almost grabs the chip. He was the closest out of everybody in these entrances and that stuff, other than Kazarian, that had their fingertips on the chip but were kind of fought off by other people. So it was a really good spot. Number 7 entrant was Joey Janela. He went berserk, absolutely banana on the outside of the ring. Hadn't seen Darby for a while here. I was unsure if he was hurt or selling. I think he was, again, pretty banged up. He does show up a little bit later on here, and in fact, right after Luchasaurus enters at 8. He takes down Luchasaurus with a code red, and the mystery entrant ends up being number 9, and the mystery entrant is Brian Cage, the Swolverine, the Machine. Brian Cage, former Impact World Heavyweight Champion, is now signed, sealed, and delivered to AEW. And he goes complete juggernaut and almost grabs the chip. SU disables him, though. And I think right there would have been the best part to end this match. I thought this match kind of dragged on and on and on. Brian Cage is with Taz. Taz seems to be another one of these legends that's come back to kind of foster or mentor another singles athlete, kind of along the same lines as a Sean Spears, Tully Blanchard, a Arn Anderson, Cody type thing, a Jake Roberts, Lance Archer type thing. Now we got Taz and Brian Cage. So I kind of like that dynamic where you have legends of the game and retired wrestlers coming back to be managers now for young up-and-coming talent or some of the super indie talent that AEW has signed. There was a great exchange later on in the match between Cage and Luchasaurus. I expect both of them to meet on AEW television, if not Dark, and it will be a good match. I think it'll be a great match for sure between the two of them. Anyways, time for the finish. The drill claw on Darby Allin by Brian Cage. Cage then tosses Darby out of the ring with the ladder, kind of not, over like that. He places Darby on the ladder as if the ladder's a stretcher, and just kind of nerfs him out of the ring with the ladder. And it's a train wreck on the outside. Like, man, Darby Allin's got to be banged up big time after this one. If he isn't, it's a miracle, because he took 2 real sick bumps in this match, and I think it would put a normal man out for a month normally. And man, that's it. Cage grabs the chip, and the winner, Brian Cage. Like I said, kind of longish, but I was very entertained. It's good to see Brian finally in AEW. We know that over Revolution Weekend and that stuff, we were kind of wondering, okay, did he sign? Did he not sign? This and that. And yeah, there we go. There's the unveil. So now what's the relationship with Taz, with Brian Cage? Like I said, I think it's probably alluding to what I talked about earlier. But, still a very interesting development nonetheless. MJF versus Jungle Boy. MJF 10-1 with no pin or submission losses to his credit going into this match. Jungle Boy with a 7-5 record, but he did go the distance with Jericho last fall on that episode of AEW Dynamite. This was an amazing technical wrestling match early. MJF is in control for most of this, but a flurry of several dives to the outside and a tornado DDT by Jungle Boy nets Jungle Boy a 2 count. Powerbomb off the ropes by Jungle Boy, only 2. And for the finish, an exchange of roll-ups, and MJF wins with a modified European clutch. That is an early match of the night candidate. The runtime on that one is 17:20. 5 stars, great wrestling contest. I enjoyed it. The ladder match had a runtime of 28:30, so just a shade under a half hour to open. That was, almost a WrestleMania level of epicness there with the ladder match. But like I said, I thought it dragged a little too long. This match, though, perfect amount of time. They probably asked them to put in a good 15 to 20. They split the difference and went 17. So, hey, kudos to them. The TNT Championship was on the line as the finals of the tournament finally came around. It was Cody versus Lance Archer, both men with their legendary managers at ringside. Arn Anderson, the manager and head coach for Cody, and Jake Roberts, kind of the advocate for Lance Archer. Advocate for a big man? Where have I seen this before? Anyway, Iron Mike Tyson will be presenting the belt, and Tyson still looks in amazing shape. Archer, though, enters the ring and chokeslams a jobber that he just grabs from the back. And Tyson looks very impressed. It happened right in front of Mike Tyson, so I guess it was kind of a don't F with me type statement. Cody, cool, calm, and collected to start. The bell rings, but Archer automatically hits the blackout. Cody rolls out of the ring. Otherwise, that would have been a quick free count, and that match would have lasted pretty short. It would have been a squash. The belt apparently is not in its final version either. It'll look better. Okay, so they explained this on the show, that the reasoning for the ugliness of the TNT belt, and I will side with the majority here. I think the TNT Championship in its current state right now looks pretty ugly. It's not a title goal type thing. It's not something that you could sell replicas of, I don't think, right now. But it sounds like that this thing's going to get a rework. You're going to get some gold on it and that stuff a little bit later on. It's just been delayed due to the pandemic and the coronavirus, and they needed to get something put together for the pay-per-view. So, ergo, we got what we got. Titles go through different iterations. I mean, really, they just redid the Intercontinental title over on the WWE side. I still think this TNT Championship is better looking than the new Intercontinental title. You can go ahead and at me on that if you disagree or whatever. But I think it is a better looking belt than the new IC belt. If it gets a little work done and makes it look a little better, hey, I'm all for that as well. Meanwhile, while the match is going on, Mike Tyson looks bemused at ringside. Archer is in control early. He walks the rope. He has this really cool move, and this showed up a couple times during the tournament. And we saw this, I think I saw this the first time in that match against Dustin Rhodes. He's got the Undertaker's rope walk down, which is, basically the spoiler Don Jardine did it initially in the 60s and the 70s. And then Undertaker picked up on that. Mark Calloway picked up on that in the 80s and perfected it in the 90s and that stuff. Archer's variation is he'll come out of that with kind of a moonsault onto the guy, which is a new twist. It's pretty cool. So anyway, he hits that, only gets a 2 count. Tyson yawning at ringside. Don't show that on the broadcast. Hope that doesn't make the DVD release. Cut away. That was a bad time to go to that camera. Archer tosses Cody over the ring post, and the ring post cam is money here. Yes, it is. This is pretty cool. First of all, that AEW started to work with a camera on each ring post. I know it's something that WWE tried a few years ago and didn't really work. I know that locally here it's something that we have tried in the past, and I remember experimenting with this about 10 or 12 years ago when GoPros were first starting to come out, putting a GoPro on each of the ring posts during a event and just recording it, and then you just intercut in the footage if you get a really nice close-up of something during the card. And if it's done correctly, it really works. One of the local promotions here, the PWA, still uses that method with GoPros, where they'll have a GoPro in a corner. And so if somebody hits it, and there's a great match from their archives, if you go check it out on the Prairie Wrestling Alliance website, from AJ Styles and Marky Mark, formerly of the Funky Bunch tag team here in Western Canada, but they had a great matchup. I want to say about 7 or 8 years ago, back when Styles had just left TNA and was on his way over to New Japan, so probably a little longer than that. But the GoPros in the ring are they're catch a bunch of spots and they cut to them quite a bit, and it's money on each shot, just like tonight. It's kind of the toss over top the camera on the ring post, and the camera pans down and sees Archer just frothing at the mouth. Oh, that was money. That was a great shot. Later on in the match, there is a crossface by Cody, and he uses the red murder hawk of Archer as kind of a choking aid. Kind of cringy there. It was like, whoa. Cody then lands a DDT in front of Jake. Archer then hits a spine buster, message sent to Arn Anderson. So both legends are rattled at that point of time. Cody with the crossroads, only 2. A stinger splash attempt denied. Archer lands a 2 count off of a chokeslam, and Tyson bounces Arn after Arn knocks Archer into the turnbuckle. So Archer was trying to rope walk again, and this time Arn jumped up and kind of goozled him and made him fall, and the tender area, right? So the old splits onto the turnbuckle type gig. So it happened there. So Arn got bounced, and then Jake got bounced, and it kind of flies in the face of, wrestling logic. Like, hey, wait a second, if that guy got bounced, the other guy should stay type thing, because he did nothing. But, if it's referee's discretion, it kind of flies like that. I don't know. It's kind of confusing along those lines, but anyway, that's what we got. So Jake tries to come back with a bag, maybe with a brand new Damien or a Lucifer in there, or whatever the name of the snake is he has now. Tyson cuts him off. Archer tries for the blackout once again, and Cody fights out, and 2 crossroads later, 1-2-3, Cody is your new TNT champ. The match itself was kind of train wrecky. The runtime for that one ended up being 22 minutes right on the dot. It is the inaugural AEW TNT Championship. So Cody now is basically the mid-card champion of AEW, if we're going to place that in kind of the hierarchy. But it's a title that supposedly is going to be defended a lot on Dynamite. So right out of the gate this week on Dynamite, there's supposed to be a battle royal to determine a brand new number 1 contender for that AEW TNT Championship. I wouldn't be surprised if it is Lance Archer winning that, and they create more drama heading towards All Out in September around that thing. But they got a lot of months of TV to plan off of that, and this is one of the best options they could go with. I would have loved to see Archer and Jake with the belt, but instead we got Cody with Arn as the manager of the TNT champion. So next contest, Penelope Ford taking on Chris Statlander. This was supposed to be Dr. Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander, but of course Dr. Baker ended up with a injury on Dynamite. Basically, if you didn't see it, Shida and Nyla Rose had Baker into a corner. Baker was seated down or laying down against the third turnbuckle, and Nyla was going in, but Shida caught Nyla, I think, with a Shida and Statlander caught Nyla with a hip toss, and Nyla kind of bumped into the corner. It was supposed to squish Baker, but the way Baker had her knee, Nyla landed almost like right onto her knee, like 100% of her body weight landed right on her knee, and basically, I don't want to say blew Baker's knee out. We did get a update tonight saying that Baker would update everybody on her condition on Wednesday as well, but this kind of put her out of the pay-per-view here. So a last-minute substitution, Baker out, Penelope Ford in. Kip Sabian just I've lulled. He was all taped up and had crutches and everything at ringside. The dude is a rat, and he's funny. He's just a little rat manager when he's ringside. It's good stuff. I like the idea of AEW and its wrestlers and legends as crowd members. It kind of reminds me of that old painting, what was it, The Last Diner on the Left, where you had, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis, and James Dean and Frank Sinatra all in this diner with some dude wiping down the table, and they're all just kind of hanging out. This is kind of the Murderers Row cross section, and tonight you saw Vicky Guerrero at ringside with Pineapple Pete and the Gun Club, and the Butcher and the Blade are ringside, and guys like that, just all around the ring, and Big Swole, and so on and so forth, and they kind of add to the noise making, and they were just on all night. Like, that would be a fun gig. I'm sorry, that would be hilariously fun. Anyways, the match starts and Ford gets a 2 count off of a Hangman's DDT. A Statlander with a huge dive on the outside, wiping out Kip and Penelope, and Kip just sells it like he gets shot. Anyways, finish, Big Bang Theory by Statlander, and she gets the Duke. That's a 1-2 free count off of a pinfall, kind of a pile driver type maneuver that she uses. That real short match at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. The next match was shorter. It was Dustin Rhodes with Brandy Rhodes taking on Shawn Spears. And this was one of those things where the storyline going into this is that Dustin was so disheveled after his loss to Lance Archer in the TNT tournament match that, people were thinking that he was going to retire, that was it, that this was the end of the line. Spears walks out in a business suit, basically saying, hey, Dustin's not here. They play his music. Dustin doesn't come out. And so the count begins. It's going to be a count out win. And Spears says, hey, wins matter here, right? And so I need this officially chalked up as a win for my spot in the rankings to go up, right? Right in the middle of Aubrey's count, then all of a sudden we have Dustin's music. We have Brandy show up at ringside, and then Dustin kind of slides in from out of frame and jumps Spears, and right away it's a beatdown. It's effectively a elongated squash for Rhodes in this match. Spears is disrobed by Dustin and gets the old Ric Flair pop, if you know what I mean. When Flair would lose his trunks, Flair would show the golden arches, and same thing was happening here. We saw Shawn Spears' golden arches all over ringside. And then, the reveal on the outside, he kind of takes the, I think it was after an eye rake or something like that. He, gets control for just a second and turns around, and then the camera zooms down, and it's Tully Blanchard's face right on basically the dick hole of Shawn Spears on his friggin' trunks, or not even trunks, boxer briefs were like that. And it pans right back up, and Shawn's like, and then he rolls back in, which allows Dustin to hit his finish, 1-2 free, and that's it. So it was kind of, it was 3 minutes and 20 seconds, but hey, Dustin Rhodes back in black and ready to go. Well, back in black and red. So, All Out announced for September 5th. So, again, AEW hitting up the Labor Day weekend again for a pay-per-view. Unsure if this will be like the brand new normal pay-per-views, which will be once again from Daly's Place or wherever, Norcross, maybe the Nightmare Factory Gym or whatever, or they'll be back running arenas at that time. We'll have to wait and see. It all depends on what opens up and what people are going to be allowed to do at that time. So the next few weeks and months will be crucial to see if we're going to have people, back into an arena for All Out. And if they do that, does it go back to Chicago and Sears Center, or does it go elsewhere? We'll have to wait and see. Very nice and classy tribute to Hana Kimura going into the AEW Women's Title match. Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida. And Shida, the outfit is an awesome take of Tifa from Final Fantasy, and kind of a mix with the colors too. The black and red, if you want to know the significance of that. I was doing some studying up on that earlier in the day too. In Stardom, black and red was the Odeyo Tai colors for one of the heel factions in Stardom, and Hana Kimura's mother was the de facto leader of Odeyo Tai in the early days of Stardom, and Hana herself had a ongoing feud with members of Odeyo Tai and was also involved in the group as well. During her career in Stardom. So with the black and red motif kind of as a subtle tribute, working it into like a Tifa Final Fantasy VII type thing, it was a very cool outfit. It was awesome. And Nyla Rose, just the native beast, what can you say? A strong champion going into this bout, and the match begins. It's a big wrestling 2 knee lift that I noticed first off by Shida. There was a poker set obliterated at ringside. Now, don't forget, this is under no DQ rules. There was a hip toss by Shida onto the poker chips outside. The big fiberglass poker chips are back. It is double or nothing, so the big poker chips are back. Shida then reclaims her kendo stick and just goes a whipping on the outside. This was a super physical battle. Both girls are just bringing it. Rose then drags at the table. Shida though fights out and sends Nyla through the table. An avalanche falcon arrow by Shida only lands a 2 count though. Shida then hits a couple running knee strikes and gets the 1-2-3. Hikaru Shida, the new AEW World Champion. Very cool for me to see. I saw one of her first real North American appearances at Shimmer 62 back in 2014 in New Orleans. It was a very eye-opening experience for me because I figured, okay, if this is somebody that we'll probably see on one of the major promotions radar for a while. And then she kind of, faded back into Japan and that stuff and into the Stardom scene and the Joshi scene and kind of wrestled around that and still would come back and make North American appearances once in a while. Fast forward to now, she's one of the pillars of AEW's women's division, is now the AEW Women's Champion, and I could not be happier for her. It's awesome to see. The runtime on that one was 16:40. This is going to be tough to pick match of the night tonight, guys. This is another contender for it. Put this one right up there with MJF and Jungle Boy. AEW World Title on the line next, where we have Jon Moxley take on Brody Lee. Brody has Mox's belt. Mox had taken out Preston Vance, which was kind of the star candidate of the Dark Order that Brody Lee has brought in prior to this. And this is a wild new jacket for Mox off of his entrance. Here's the records. Mox 11-0 in 2020 going into this one. And Brody Lee, since coming to AEW, is 5-0 going into this one. Security separating both men until the bell. I love that. And the bell rings, and we see an amazing tope suicida by Lee to Mox on the outside. Moxley, though, sends Brody Lee through the timekeeper's table at ringside. Superplex by Brody Lee, though. Mox grapevines the leg and almost gets two. Lee suplexes Mox through the cards at ringside, and this whole thing ends with a paradigm shift by Moxley onto Lee through the ramp. Shades of Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow from that ECW pay-per-view some years ago. From Hardcore Heaven or Heatwave, I think it was, in 98. Man, that was just... They pulled it out. That's it. That definitely would have to explain some of Taz's involvement on creative there. That was one of the ideas that they decided to go with. Lee is busted open from it. He's the second guy out. Moxley is basically waiting for him in the ring. And Mox hits another paradigm shift and then into a dragon sleeper. And it chokes out Brody Lee. Brody Lee does not submit at all. He just goes night-night. And that's it. Mox 12-0 in 2020 and retains the AEW World Championship, gets his belt back. After the match, Mox cuts a promo on Brian Cage. That is going to be a marquee matchup this summer. It'll be really interesting to see Cage go head-to-head with Moxley and see what happens. AEW action figures coming this summer, August 2020. It was announced for that. And we go right from that into the main event, which is the Stadium Stampede match, which we had the Elite, Matt Hardy, Kenny Omega, Matt and Nick Jackson, and Hangman Page, versus the Inner Circle, Chris Jericho, Santana, Ortiz, Sammy Guevara, and Jake Hager. This match took place at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, Florida. The home of the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a roughly 70,000 seat stadium, I believe, and it's an outdoor stadium. It's a football stadium, NFL style football stadium. And the way this match was basically advertised as it's a 5-on-5 no disqualification tag team match, and you could falls count anywhere in the stadium. You could fight anywhere in amongst the stadium, in any of the dressing rooms, in the bathrooms, whatever you need to get the decision. But it was 5-on-5, and first pinfall submission won it. So if you love that, you'll definitely love this, because this was kind of the new age Raw Bowl for 2020. The Inner Circle coming out in full football regalia with helmets, you name it. Jericho wearing his dad's number, of course, a real nice touch. His dad, Ted Irvin, one of the toughest NHL hockey players ever. This was this was weird because we saw the introduction for the Inner Circle, and they were introduced first, and they all came out dressed as football players, basically. So I'm thinking the Elite is going to come out dressed as football players. It's going to be guys working a match in football regalia. The Elite, not so much, though. They show up in wrestling regalia. So this is a 5-on-4 to start because Hangman Page is conspicuous by his absence. They introduce him. He doesn't come out of the tunnel at all. And we're looking for him. So Sammy Guevara is being Sammy Guevara in the early parts of this match. And then all of a sudden he looks up, and at the other end of the field, much like on Wednesday, here's Adam Page horseback. And the horse takes off with Page on it. And Guevara takes off. He's on the run again. I laughed at that. That was a great spot. The match does play, like I said, as a 5-on-5, no disqualification tag match. There's live commentary going on, so it's kind of a hybrid cinematic / actual Falls Count Anywhere match going on. This was apparently pre-taped the night before, so that's the cinematic quality of it. But if it's off-the-wall cinematics, you're looking at the Boneyard match over in WWE or the most recent Money in the Bank match that we've seen, forget it. This is actually under the confines of almost a legit wrestling match for the majority of it, and then they all kind of sprawl out wherever. So we do see the moonsault off of the goalpost by Matt Jackson onto Jericho, only a 2 count off of that. We see a awesome kind of Roadhouse callback between Hangman Page and Jake Hagar, which was great. There was a really brutal combination where Proud and Powerful Santana and Ortiz decide to blind Omega with table salt, and then continue to powerbomb him through a table that's set up between two kind of patio furniture style tables. I mean, that had to hurt. It was kind of elevated off the ground a little bit. Again, another 2 count off of that. Matt Hardy's Lake of Reincarnation spots in the pool were absolutely hilarious. Again, we saw the return of V1 Matt Hardy. We saw Team Extreme Matt Hardy once again. Just incredible stuff. The brawl in the bar kind of ends where there's a V-trigger buckshot lariat combination between Omega and Hangman, and it seems like the bond is back on between both of them, and it's a hilarious spot to end it, where there's Hangman behind the bar. He pours himself a shot of whiskey. He pours Kenny a glass of whole milk because Kenny's straight edge, doesn't drink, and they cheers. And the crowd, the limited crowd there does pop. It's incredible. Tons of other stuff. You got to sit down and take a look at this and see it. I just don't want to keep dragging on and on and on with it. The finish, a monster one-winged angel through the rampway below on Sammy Guevara. A 1-2-3 count, and the Elite defeats the Inner Circle. And the match runs 34 minutes in total. So right after that, we get the boys hitting their pose, and it goes to black. My ranking for this entire show is, it kind of wavered a bit, but it's still a solid 8 out of 10 in my opinion. You got a bunch of really good matches. I really enjoyed MGF Jungle Boy. I really enjoyed Nyla Shida. The Stadium Stampede was a really good match. I put out on Twitter right after this match, what was your pick for match of the night out of the 4? And the results are, 77% of you decided that the Stadium Stampede was the match of the night. A tie for second between Cody and Archer and MGF and Jungle Boy, and no votes at all for Shida and Rose. So there you go, everybody. That's what we got. So anyways, later days, happy wrestling watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed AEW Double or Nothing 2020. They are making do without the live audience, and I think that this was one of the better shows without a live audience. Well, it kind of did have a live audience a little bit there. It had a limited live audience. But it was well worth the pay-per-view price, I thought. And a solid, night of wrestling. Great stuff. And the AEW brand just continues to grow on and on and on. So, all right, folks, catch you later. See ya.